Welcome everyone to the Life by Design, Not Default podcast. I'm Paige, and I'm here with my business bestie, Elaine, and we want to talk to you about all things life, business, and beyond. This podcast is for anyone done with the mediocre and ready to design a life that is meaningful, impactful, and fun. So our question to you is, how are you designing your life by design and not default?
And today we are super excited to welcome Jennifer Huber to the show. Today's topic is all about mental health, and Jennifer has been a mental health advocate for many years. Her passion is in educating, eliminating stigma, and helping families find appropriate resources for themselves and their loved ones. She has had the honor of lobbying on Capitol Hill multiple times, advocating for mental health initiatives. She created a speakers bureau of family members and clients that educate first responders, police, students, and educators on who is affected and the cost of mental health today, and has facilitated numerous family support groups. So welcome, Jennifer. We are so excited to have you on the show today. This is going to be such a great topic. I cannot wait.
I'm very excited and so thankful that you invited me. I'm happy to be here.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Elaine.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, how did you get started? Give us some of the backstory on how this became a part of your journey.
Well, I would never wish this upon anyone, for sure, right? My husband and I had a chain of Domino's pizza stores for about 25 years. So we have 3 children. We now have 3 grandchildren. And but raising our family, we did all the things you're supposed to do. You know, there's a roof over their head, there's food on the table. We were running businesses. We had about 150 employees. Life was a little busy. Our daughter, she's the middle, and there's reasons I say that. She's the middle. She, super smart, incredibly intelligent, always challenged herself to be better, and always wanted more out of herself than we would ever ask. One day after youth group, the youth pastor had said, "Hey, can I talk to you?" Picking her up. And I'm like, "Sure." And he said to us, "I need you to know that Allie's cutting." Oh. Now, this was about 18 years ago. And I had no idea what that was, had never heard of it, didn't understand it. She was 13 at the time. And so, of course, I race home and get on the internet. That was a little sketchy back then, right? We didn't have all the access we have now. And did tons of research and thought, well, this is just the most bizarre thing, right? I mean, this kid is loved and cherished and active and, And so that was the beginning of our journey. And it was really, really a struggle. Mental health for adolescents at that time was really a challenge. Not a lot of therapists would see young adults. And we had health insurance, but that was a huge challenge too, because health insurance at the time, you had major medical, you could have a heart attack, anything like that. But mental health was capped at $1,000. Mm. And one hospital stay for about 4 days is over $10,000. Mm. And then you add on appointments and medicine and things like that. So that started our journey. She was seeing someone for a while, and we had all those same beliefs, that most people do, right? Like, I'm gonna turn her over to the professionals. They're gonna fix her, and she'll be great. Well, that's not really how mental health works.
Right.
And she was hospitalized multiple times. Tried to take her own life at least 5 times.
Oh my goodness.
And the last time that was really kind of the breaking straw for us, and as a family, I'm very thankful we stayed together. There's a challenge that a lot of families break up. Other children in the home get resentful. It can be really challenging. Mm-hmm. And the entire time, the state, we were told several times, well, just sign her over to the state. Lower your expectations on her life. Give up on what you think hopes and dreams are. And as a parent, you're like, who would say that to a person? As the years went on, we started to understand how challenging it could be. You're tired, and it's not, mental illness it's an illness. And just like diabetes is a health concern with your pancreas, mental illness is a concern with your brain. And we ask people to use their brain that's broken to fix them.
Oh, that's a really good point.
Right? And so if you had a heart condition, I wouldn't tell you to go get on a treadmill and run to the end of the earth, right? Like, we're asking people kind of to do the impossible. And until you've been down that path and kind of learn and understand that, it's really challenging. And I think the toughest part, even today, it's so much better. Like, there's hope, there's new medicines, there's new therapies, there's just so much better than it was. I think the challenge really is there's still the stigma attached, right? So if my child had had cancer or a heart condition, there would have been all kinds of casseroles. There's no freaking casseroles when your kid's crazy.
Right.
They're like, oh, let's stay away from that family. And that's a challenge. And I like people to think about, if I said cancer, what are some of the words that come to your brain? You're like, strong, right? What are some
brave, right?
Yeah.
Brave, courage.
You're a fighter, yeah.
Right. And when I say mental health, what are the words that come to your mind?
Crazy.
Yeah. Nuts, cray. Like, there are no positive words that we use, yet they're really the same. Right. And so as a society, we've created that stigma. It's very challenging for people to say, I have a problem.
Right.
And sadly, with so much mental health, especially today, right, we're separated. In your brain, and I'm pointing at my head, this is a very scary place to go by yourself.
Yeah.
And being home right now, 24/7, and not having the outside world, you're here a lot.
Yep.
We say things to ourselves that you would never say to another human. Right? So that's really a challenge today. So through all of our progression, the last time our daughter tried to take her life, we had told her she couldn't come home. She was 17. She was a senior in high school. Straight A student, played sports, very active. We said, look, we just can't have you here, because if she had died, I don't know that I could have gone back home. And it wasn't fair to the rest of the family. She spent, because of what she did, she had taken a lot of medication and tried to overdose. And it had, we caught it too late, and they couldn't pump her stomach. So she had done some heart damage. So she was in a coma in a children's hospital, Barbara Bush Children's Hospital, actually. And that was really the turning point for us. I had been going to some support group meetings myself, and, and I was never that support group girl, right? Like, yeah, no, I'm okay. I'll pull up my big girl panties and keep going, That was life-changing and really saved our family. And it's NAMI, which is the National Alliance on Mental Illness. They are amazing. I mean, and so much to offer. And so we told her, you can't come home. So after she got, on that ward, there were all these small children that had cancer and heart patients, just, and there are so many of them with shaved heads and IVs and just pulled at your heartstrings. And I looked around and I thought, oh my goodness, these children are doing anything they can to live. And my kid's doing anything she can to die.
Yeah.
Who am I to decide? She's 17 and I have to let go. This is her burden. I can't love her enough to fix her. I can't give her enough medication to fix her. I can't, she has to own this. And so it was a gift we handed her.
Okay.
And that's a heavy gift.
Yeah.
Right? And we told her we love her and support her. And, we were there as a family. Well, she ended up leaving there, thankfully, and went into, a psychiatric hospital. And she had been there enough times that most doctors and nurses there knew us pretty well. And we said, we're done. We're not visiting. We're not coming. When she calls us, we'll respond, but we can't just smother her. And she was there about 3 months, and we received a phone call, and they said, Allie's decided that she wants to come home. Will you come in and talk with all of us? So there was a panel of 12 doctors and ourselves, my husband and I, and she had written a contract to us that said, I cannot promise I won't take my own life, but I do promise it will never be at home.
Wow.
And so we let her come home on a leap of faith, right? And that really was when I said, okay. I started collecting sea glass because we lived in Maine on the ocean. And the sea glass had such an important value to me because some of it was small, some of it was big, some of it was beautiful, some of it was cloudy, some of it was ugly. And that really represented a day in her life of that was reality. Some were really heavy, some are not pretty. But it was a symbol to me that she had one more day on this earth. Mm-hmm. And I had to treasure that. Mm. And so I started collecting sea glass daily. Now I have bowls and bowls of it. Through that journey, we had to find ways to talk and relate. And I was a busy person, 150 employees, 5 restaurants, other children, a husband, I'm a daughter, I was one of those people that could drive down the road, drink a cup of coffee, talk on the phone, yell at the kids, and be on to the 3 next things, right? And boy, if I walked into a convenience store or somewhere, you better take care of me not because I was more important, but I was busy and I didn't have time for this. And so learning to be present was huge. Most people have a dishwasher thing that says clean or dirty. Ours said talk, don't talk. Mm. So that was her indicator that, Mom, I need you to be present. You need to eliminate everything else and have a conversation with me. And if it was don't talk, it was I'm not ready yet, right? Because when someone has a mental illness, you can't be easy about it. I mean, you got to be like, look, are you thinking of killing yourself today? Do you have a plan? What's the scale? You can't hide behind it. You can't try and cover it up. Like, it's a pile of crap.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to call your mom or your girlfriend and go, hey, my kid's in the middle of the kitchen floor with a pile of knives. How's your day?
Right.
Who do you rely on?
Right.
Who can relate? Right?
Mm.
So again, it has gotten so much better. I am so thankful for the relationship that we have today. Because of her illness, I am truly a better person. Right? I would never wish that on anyone. But I had all those stigmas, all those thoughts, when we would go into a hospital, there's an entire wing for adolescents and like very little people and adults. And I thought, how did we get here as a society? Like, this is really scary. How did we get here? And so many people. I mean, if you look at the statistics, people in jail, huge mental health population. Juvenile, in the juvenile justice system, 79% of those kids have a mental health issue. And guess what?
Mhm.
They don't get help there.
Right.
That's not where they get help. And it costs us as a society so much
Mhm.
to just put them in jail and house them. And then what happens? They have a record.
Yep.
Hard to get a job, hard to get an apartment, like hard to start their life. Like, oh my gosh, we are setting them up for failure.
Girl, my husband works at the jail and confirms all of that to be true. Like that they have our mental health facility here has contracts with the jail to house their people because we don't have a mental hospital besides at the university, which is a couple hours away. But most of the people that are incarcerated in our local jail while they are standing trial or trying to be deemed fit to stand trial, which is a whole process, have mental illness. And it's the repeat offenses over and over and over, and they cannot get out of it. They are stuck. They are lifers stuck in the system. And with what hope? Very slim.
Yeah.
Very slim. It's absolutely horrifying. And once they started, and a lot of people that have mental illness also tend to abuse substances, right?
100%.
Right. And are you familiar with the ACEs study?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So they've started utilizing the ACEs study, which for those of you who don't know, stands for Adverse Childhood Experiences. There's this gauge 1 to 10, and for each childhood experience you can relate to, you get a point. And this doctor discovered that if you have points of 4 or higher or 7 or higher, that you are more likely to have issues with your health, with your heart, with your mental health, with substance abuse, going to prison, and then all of the coping mechanisms that come along with all of that. It is horrifying, absolutely horrifying. And they now have some treatment plans available to help people get clean and stop, using, whether it's heroin or meth or whatever to cope. They're giving them this medication that will eliminate the addiction so that they can then get the help that they need to move forward in their life in some way, without that thing hanging over their shoulder. But the mental health piece of it can finally surface so that they can deal with that. And then, right, it's just as a whole mess. And it's just, wow. So tell us what you've been doing on Capitol Hill.
Yeah, I know.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Well,
and I was going to say, I know that you have two things. You have the Capitol Hill. So talk to us about that first. And then secondly, talk to us about some of the amazing programs that you have for individuals and families around this.
Perfect. There's one quick thing I want to say about that co-occurring disorder, right? And I want you to think about that. If you have a mental health concern, whether you're feeling depressed or you're psychotic or bipolar or right, there's all these medications and some work great and some don't. And it takes a long time to figure out what that good combination is going to be. If you're a young person or an older person, right, who hasn't gotten help, it's so much easier to go to drugs or alcohol, right? Because if you're a teenager, are you more likely to say to your friends, I'm crazy, or I'm going to go smoke some pot?
Right.
Which one's better? Right? No, neither one's a good option, right? But it's more society accepted that you're going to drink or do drugs, unfortunately. And so they take that path first.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's not that intervention. So thank you for asking. Through our daughter's trials, you know, one of the things that we realized was that there wasn't, yes, there was NAMI, which was super helpful. But there were still questions that I really wanted to ask her, or someone that had had her experience, but it was hard to ask her because she's my daughter and I love her. And she would have feelings about how she answered, and I would have feelings about how she responded and things like that. And one of the places that we found, you know, some of the challenges that we really found were dealing with people that are in the business, had all the same stigma and prejudged. So I remember taking our daughter one time to the hospital because she was asking for help. And we brought her and we got checked in, and she's getting settled in a room, and we were waiting in the hallway, and we overheard a nurse say, "Oh, I wonder what those parents did to her." You know, and I'm like, "Oh, I'm here doing everything I can to support my child. How dare you?" Right? Because you haven't walked in my shoes. You don't know. And yes, there are some instances when that happens, for sure, that parents have not properly facilitated the healthcare, right? Or have created some of the challenges, but we can't assume that's everyone,
Mm-hmm.
you know? So through that, started doing a lot of, you know, when a major crisis happens, right? We all go through a process, right? Like anger and then fear and guilt, and you have to move through those emotions. And on the other end, you're like, okay, now I'm going to take action and do something about this. And so I started running NAMI support groups, got very involved. Our daughter actually started really speaking out and saying, "Mom, there should be no other kids or families that go through this." And we're like, well, how do we change it? So I put together a speakers bureau, and it was a group of clients who had had mental health issues, anywhere from, you know, about 16 to about 74. Right. And let me tell you, that lived life experience of that 74-year-old woman, of how much mental health has changed. I mean, she had been locked up as a child and tortured in mental health institutions that were terrible years ago, right? And been homeless, and oh my goodness, just heartbreaking, right? And how strong she is that she survived and could live to tell her story. And then we had families that would come together, and we would talk about, you know, those families. In reality, my daughter was pretty easy. I mean, I have family members that, you know, their sons would take an axe to an entire house and they were constantly petrified. And this person gets put in a mental health facility, but then they're released. But because it's mental health, the police can't notify them that this person is out. Can you imagine living in fear that your child is going to return, right? And so we put together this group of speakers, and we went to police departments, and we went to hospitals, and we went to colleges to talk to the students that were reading the book, right? They wanted to go into the mental health field, either social workers or psychiatric or whatever. And they were young and inexperienced, and they'd read the book, but they hadn't lived it. And so the reality is very, very different. And something that happened, which I had never planned and am so thankful for, is that I had the ability to talk to other people and ask those really hard questions that I couldn't ask my daughter, but of other clients. And the same for her is that she had the ability to speak to other family members and ask them, "Oh my goodness, how did this make my parents feel?" Or "How did this make my sister feel?" Or how do I have this conversation, right? And so we saw this huge awakening of family members being able to talk to other family members, and other clients being able to talk, and huge awakening. And so, through the work that I was doing, I had been asked to go to Capitol Hill, mostly for adolescent mental health, because one, the reciprocity wasn't the same on the health insurance. It has gotten so much better. Two was she was able to go with me. So together we lobbied on Capitol Hill. We did that 3 or 4 years together. And it was so interesting because you would go there and they expected people that would show up would not be articulate, would not be educated, would not have resources. And so, we were changing thought processes and minds. It's not just the homeless guy on the corner.
Right.
Yeah. Right. Like he's got mental health too, right? He's somebody's dad or brother. Somebody loves him and needs to find him. But there are so many people today walking around just like you and me. And we have no idea how much they're suffering.
Right.
And so now when I walk into a store or meet any human, I'm like, what just happened in their life? Right? Yeah. Like, did their husband just beat the shit out of them? Right? Did their kid something just happen? Like, we have no idea. So let's be a little kind.
Right.
Right? One thing that always resonates in my brain is she is me. Whether it's in the finest hour or the darkest, I've been there. Mm-hmm. Right? And how dare I judge how you're walking your path today?
Yeah.
Because I know you are doing the best you can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's so, so amazing. One of the things that's coming up for me was that a couple of years ago, I did a project when I was a photographer called Project Beauty Beast. And I interviewed kids in school, like middle school and high school kids. We talked about bullying, we talked about body shame, but we also talked about self-harm and suicide. And so I put together this documentary, and it was really hard. It was really hard that some of these kids that I interviewed had already attempted suicide, had already, were already cutting themselves. And parental support was kind of split, right? There was, one of the girls who had a huge family support and the other one, not so much. And to see the difference of where they're at now is amazing. One of the things that was really cool was the gal that does my tattoo work. She does medical tattooing, and she was able to, she does skin needling. And she gave free skin needling sessions to anyone that was in my project that had scars that they wanted to, she tattoos them with water. And so it forces the skin to get abrasive and then reheal itself. And so it lessens the scars so that they don't have to live with that reminder every day of their life, right? And one of the girls let me come and be there. And I was her support person as she went through this. And it was the tears were just flowing from her. Like it was, you know what I mean? It was like this huge release for her. But it was like, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's amazing. That is so amazing. You are right. These kids live with that. Today, I do want to say, I want to give credit to my daughter. She graduated college. She went to Smith University and got her master's in 18 months. She now is on a college campus serving, kids in crisis.
That's amazing.
And serves on 2 hospital boards and does some speaking herself, and has really taken that opportunity to change, right? Mm-hmm. She now has tools for herself. She knows when she needs help. She knows if she needs to add medication or not add medication. Right? Like, it's education, and it's a process. Mm-hmm. And honestly, I feel for those parents who struggle there were so many times that, you know, we'd go to pick her up for a visitation or something like that, and we're always there, you know. And in the beginning, we're like, other kids would be waiting for their parents to show up, and no one would show up. We're like, how does that happen? Right? Like, we were all judgy. Well, I got to tell you, 5, 6, 7 years down the road, you are tired. My son, at one point, had broken his foot. He played lacrosse, and the athletic director called us and said, "Hey, Freddie broke his foot. You know, can you meet him at the emergency room? We're gonna, you know, they're gonna take him over. You can blah blah blah." I'm like, "No, I can't." And she's like, "No, Jennifer, really, Freddie broke his foot. Like, he needs." I said, "I'm sorry, you're gonna have to take care of that. I have a kid that wants to kill herself. He's just got a broken foot. That'll heal." Right? I now I look back in that and I think, oh man, that was a lot to dump on that poor woman, you know? And thankfully she knew us. So she was like, "Yep, I got you," you know? You make decisions that you think, oh, and no one prepares you. We're not professionals. And I think about people that don't necessarily have resources. And I don't even mean financial resources, their own bandwidth, right? To be able to cope with that. Think about if you're a single mom, your kid's in a psychiatric unit that could be hours away, right? You got to work, you got to take care of other kids, you might not have transportation. And let's add in different ethnicities, different backgrounds. You know, the stigma for us is bad. In Maine, that is a huge Somalia, Sudanese, and things, refugee resettlement. If you have a mental illness, you have brought so much shame on that family. I mean, like, you did something. What did you do to cause this? Right? Like, this is evil that has come to our family. Shame on you. And I think, oh my goodness, how horrible to carry that, right? So as a family, they give up because they're at the end of their rope. They have nothing left to give. Maybe because there's some mental health there themselves. Right. And so I don't judge those families. You know, it's even recently we had or it's been, I don't know, year and a half now, those shootings. There were a couple of young men, right, that had gone into places, Walmart, some other places, and shot some people. Totally not acceptable. Okay? No, not at all. I look at them though, and if you looked at them, it was clear that these were kids that had been bullied for a long, long time. And in the background, you heard a lot of noise about, well, why didn't those parents do something? Or what did, you know, and I'm like, oh my goodness. First of all, these were like 18, 20-year-old young men.
Right.
Too. I could not hold them down and shove medicine down their throat or control them or, you know. And two, if you really dug deep into their history, those families had begged and pleaded for help for years. These kids had just been put through the system and passed on to other schools, and nobody said, stop. Like, we have to do something now, right? And so it just got exacerbated and the families were at the end of their rope. Right? So instead, we need to have compassion for those families. And it doesn't matter if they're even just a parent. Maybe it's a husband or a wife of someone that has a mental illness and they go to work every day. You can't tell your boss, hey, my wife is home suicidal, I gotta go. Because then they're like, well, we don't have time for that, right? And so they're carrying those burdens too, and the children that they have to take care of. And, you know, so when you think of it, I want you to think of, if somebody said it was cancer, they'd say, oh, go take the day off. Your wife needs to go to the hospital, your husband needs whatever treatment, right? But when they say mental health, it changes the conversation. We need to flick that switch.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing, Jennifer, when it comes to mental illness, I have mental illness in my family, and they're highly functioning. Regular people wouldn't even realize that there's a mental illness issue there because they can have conversations, they can go to work every day, they can be social, they can have really high achievements.
Mm-hmm.
And so there isn't anything that's outwardly, like if someone breaks their leg, that
Right.
outwardly people can see that's wrong with them. And that is so, so difficult to explain to someone who has not grown up around someone with mental illness, and they don't understand the the mood swings, the polar opposite, depending on what type of mental illness that you have. And it's just so frustrating. I'm sitting here, and for those of you who cannot see us, I look like a bobblehead because I'm putting my, we're raising our heads up and down because it is just so unfortunate that the stigma is there.
Mm-hmm.
So talk to us a little bit about, maybe you have a couple of suggestions. This last year, 2020, for those of you who are listening, if you're listening in the future, has been so challenging in so many ways. Even for quote unquote, I'm going air quotes, normal people to, deal with the whole isolation and the change in routine and all of that type of things. What are some things that, if or you yourself, or someone who's struggling with mental illness, what are perhaps 2 or 3 coping mechanisms that people can do to kind of get through this time right now?
That's a super good question. Okay. Couple of things is make the phone call, right? Just pick up the damn phone. It doesn't matter if they don't answer. Leave the message, send the text, right? Sometimes text is amazing because there's not that tonality, right? So there's no expectation or anything else. Like, it's just clear. I love you. I'm here. That's it, right? Maybe it's, if you have someone in your home, it's take the dishwasher thing and change it to talk, don't talk. It's setting, it's setting and being present. If I'm now here with you having this conversation, I am having this conversation. My phone is not on. I don't have stuff that's distracting, because you are important to me. And what you have to say is important to me. And even if you don't say anything, I cherish this time with you, right? So just get on a Zoom. I know it seems a little bizarre now, but we're all getting used to it, right? It's a good check-in. 2 other things I think are really, really important. We need to make sure that people have hope, right? That they're moving forward. So things to watch for are, people withdrawing more and more. If they're getting rid of things that have value or are important to them, give them a plant. It's something that they have to take care of and look forward to taking care of. Or a pet. During this whole thing, the pet adoption has gone through the roof, which is wonderful, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
That's people that are looking forward to tomorrow. I know I have to get up and take care of the dog. I have to walk, whatever, right? So they know they're getting up tomorrow. Same with a plant. Start simple. I know I have to take care of this plant. And encourage them, right, to, NAMI has family support groups. NAMI also has support groups for clients or persons with mental illness that are just like we're on here right now. And you get to vomit all the crap that's in your head, good, bad, different, whatever. There's no doctors there. There's no therapists there. It is your peers, right? And so if you're struggling, they've been there. They totally understand. And there's no judgment. Some of it is go for a walk. You have to get out of here, right, to be able to move forward. And I'm not saying don't feel those feelings, right? I think some of that is we've been, especially my age, we were taught, get over yourself, get on to the next thing, right? Right. So you couldn't feel the feelings. Well, one, you need to feel the feelings and move through them. We can't wallow, right? But don't tell someone you can't feel that, right? Help them move through that path, a walk, a conversation. It's just they have to know someone loves them and cares for them, no matter what, right?
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much for those suggestions. Because it really is the little things, right? That help get people to the next day.
100%.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the questions that we love to ask people is, how have you designed a life by design and not default?
That's a good one, right? For so long, we didn't want to tell people our kid was crazy, right? And then you get to the point where you want to make it as bad as it possibly is, because the squeaky wheel gets the juice, man. So I could tell some good stories to get her some help, right? It's letting go, right, of the things that aren't important, releasing what no longer serves you. And that's other people's opinions.
Yes.
Because they haven't lived your life. They haven't felt your emotions. They don't know what you're going through. And you have no idea what theirs are, right? So I don't get to judge.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened 10 minutes ago. You just cut me off in traffic. God bless you. Because I don't know if you're on the way to the emergency room or your kid has to pee so bad in the back of the car, right? We've all been there, right? Like, I don't encourage speeding, but don't tell me you haven't done it, right? So give people grace. It's not the stuff that happens to you. It's the grace that follows.
Yep.
Oh, you just gave me goosebumps, Jennifer. That's the quote of the day.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So true.
I work now with people that really, I believe that so many times we have defaulted because it was easy, right? We were taught to go to school, to get good grades, to get into a good college, to get a good job, to da 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 da, right? And we never give ourselves the ability to be happy in the moment, right? Because even though I don't have everything I want, and I'm not everything I want to be yet, I can be happy today. And so I love to work with people that maybe have, done everything they're supposed to do in life, right? You're the good mom. You're the good employee. You took care of your family, your parents, right? You've done all the things you're supposed to do. And that dream or drive that you had as a young person kind of sits on the shelf because you fell into this by default. Oh, I have a job. I should be happy. I get paid. I have friends. But that's not speaking to your power and your passion. Like, I want you to live the fullest, best life you can live, right? And we all get to decide what that is, what success looks like to you. It's very different for each of us.
That's right. Oh, girl. Okay. We could probably talk to you for hours and hours and hours. And we are so thankful that you were willing to share your story with us and our listeners today, because people are not alone. They're not as alone as they think that they are. So we so appreciate that. And one of our big questions that we also always ask is, what is your motto? So for me, my motto is, I deserve to be here. I've worked hard. I've walked through the fire. I deserve to be here. Elaine, what's your motto this week?
This week it's dreams don't work unless you do.
Ooh, both
very
of them.
Good one.
Amazing.
And Jennifer, would you mind sharing yours?
I have it on my phone.
Okay.
So whenever I turn my phone on, it's right here for me, right? I love the person I have become because I fought to be her.
Oh, that's a good one.
That's so good. That's so
Right?
good. So my last question for you is, what would you suggest for someone who has a child or has an adult in their life that is exhibiting signs of mental illness? How do we move forward and help them?
.org for sure in your community, and find, some support there.
Okay, so my last question for you is, if you have a family member, a child, someone that you love that is exhibiting signs of mental illness, what do you do? What steps do you take? Who do you call? What's the thing to do?
Okay, first thing is get in touch with NAMI, go on their website, look for resources. Know what your resources are in your local community. Obviously, 911. A lot of communities also have a 211 that will be local support. So like a crisis suicide prevention hotline, or you can ask for an assessment, right? When you call the police, this is super, super important. So please, please know. One, it's heart-wrenching to have to do that, to call the police on your own child or your husband or your spouse, right? But you know in your head it's the right thing to do. It breaks your heart, but you got to do it. When you call, please ask them for a CIT officer, which is a crisis intervention trained officer. Let them know there's someone in your home with mental health concerns. If the situation is dangerous and you're in fear of your own life, leave and then call, okay? If you can stay there, you need to be calm. You need to explain to them on the phone that there is someone there with a mental health issue. And the reason that's really important is they will come, specific officers that have been trained, who listen to me preach on them for a while, for one. But they come, they don't have the lights on, they don't have guns drawn, they're not looking to escalate the situation, they're looking to de-escalate the situation. So it's really important that you're clear about that. Be calm, understand that you need to be able to think. Are there medications involved? What's the history? And be clear. Once that person is removed, either you've left, they've had to go to the hospital, the police have taken them, whatever, you're dealing with a lot of stuff. Reach out for help. You need help too, okay? Don't be ashamed of that. Reach out to NAMI, reach out to me. I mean, I am happy. You can post my phone number. I don't have a problem with that. Text me, call me. I am used to. You need support too. You need love. You need somebody that's been there and understands. Okay?
We will be sure to put all of those resources in the show notes.
Yes. Suicide prevention hotline, right? There's a 1-800 number. There's two books that I always recommend. And they're old. They've been around forever. The first one is I Hate You, Don't Leave Me. Because that person knows that you're safe to get upset with. It's just like when we send our kids to school, right? They're animals at home and they go to school and they're angels, right? But it's because they know it's okay to be who they need to be at home because they're loved, right? So it's I Hate You, Don't Leave Me. And the second one is Stop Walking on Eggshells. As a caretaker, you have to know that you can have boundaries and consequences because you still have to have a life.
Yeah. Such good conversation today. This has been really, really powerful. One of the things that I was really excited to learn was recently our police department, they have a person on staff that is trained to specifically help de-escalate, any mental health because a majority of the time that people are calling the police on somebody, especially, you know, in the grocery store, they're acting a fool. Our reaction is we have to call the police because they're making me uncomfortable. They need to be removed. And
Right.
it's typically a mental health crisis. It could be, you know, a drug reaction or intoxication of some sort, but it's having that person so that they're not showing up guns blazing. Like we need to, you know, have more conversation than let me point a gun at you and force you to do things that it's just going to escalate and not going to turn out well for anyone. Right. So I am really happy that that has happened in our area. And I hope that it starts to happen in other areas too, if it hasn't already, because it's so important that, you know, the police are there to protect and serve, right? And sometimes that means they have to protect you from yourself.
Yes.
Right. But not with weapons.
No. No.
Like that just doesn't make any sense to me, but whatever, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
And it's hard for them too.
It is.
Honestly.
Yeah.
You know, because they don't know what they're walking into.
Right.
And people either with drugs or a mental health issue that can switch so quickly.
Yes.
That the person, you know, chooses not to only want to harm themselves, but others because they're in pain and they're lashing out. It's not acceptable.
Right.
But we don't understand.
Yeah.
Because we can't put ourselves in that position.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
So this was wonderful, ladies. I am so thankful that you wanted to hear, that you wanted to learn. Let's and change that. Stop the stigma, break the silence.
Oh my goodness, Jennifer, you're so right. I mean, we are all about stopping that negative narrative that goes along with this to help people get the help that they need and deserve. Right? So how can people find out more about you and the Huber Legacy Group and all of that? So
I'm Jennifer Huber. You can find me on LinkedIn for sure. You can find me on Facebook at Jennifer L. Huber. And I'm an open book. My phone number is 702-201-5206 or jennifer@huberlegacy.com. Come find me. I love to have a conversation.
That's so generous of you to put yourself out there like that and offer yourself up as a resource. So I hope that if our audience ever needs it, that they have it, right? So thank you for that. I think that's super duper amazing. So thank you so much for being here and having this hard conversation with us, because that's how we, you know, stop the stigma and break the silence, is we have to talk about it, and that it's, you know, that's just how we move forward, right? We got to have the conversation. Yeah. Thank you so much, Jennifer.
Love you guys. Thank you.
Love you too.